White Claw, White Claw, White Claw. The craze is out of control. What other drink trends have gone too far?
Number 8. Bathtub Gin. Back in the wild days of the roaring 20s, Bathtub Gin was the umbrella term for different kinds of homemade liquor. People took cheap grain alcohol, mixed it with whatever juice or flavoring they thought would taste okay, and bottled it up in their bathtubs.
How unsanitary. Guess it's a good thing alcohol kills germs.
Now, despite the name, Bathtub Gin wasn't actually brewed in a bathtub. You need a closed container to ferment alcohol. Instead, it just means that people filled the bottles of their grain alcohol concoctions with water from their bathtubs. This kept the operations small enough to be undetected by the police, but large enough to supply a speakeasy with enough liquor to get a party started.
Nowadays, when I hear bathtub gin, I just assume people got too drunk and fell asleep in their bathtub.
Unfortunately, as a side effect of prohibition and bathtub gin, unregulated distillers used denatured alcohol when they couldn't find grain alcohol. There's a big difference. Denatured alcohol isn't supposed to be consumed at all, as it contains the poison methanol, and people became blind or died when they drank it unknowingly. Number 7. Whiskey Rebellion. In the early days of the United States, liquor was a big business. In fact, on average, Americans consumed about 7 gallons of alcohol per person per year. That's a lot of whiskey.
That is 3 times more than we drink today, for comparison.
Because there was so much corn being grown on the western frontier of the early United States, there was a surplus of whiskey, and the farmers did not want to be taxed on their highly profitable business. In the 1790s, tax collectors found that Western farmers would not only not pay them the taxes, but they would get violent and throw them out of town. Tensions escalated, and eventually George Washington had to send out federal troops to put down the rebellion. Imagine some college kids starting an armed insurrection because their beer kegs got 25% more expensive. Now, excessive drunkenness and violent rebellion are one alcohol-related trend we definitely don't need to bring back. Number 6. Cream-based craze. Things were a little weird in the 1970s, and the beverages were no exception. Rich, creamy mixers meant that the alcoholic drinks were a little more like slushies, and less like contemporary mixed drinks. We're talking heavy cream, creme de cacao, creme de menthe, all day, every day.
Meanwhile, most guys' drinks were the same old beer and whiskey. Guess those drink innovations didn't cross the gender gap.
There was no subtlety in that decade, especially in the alcohol. Perhaps pina coladas symbolized the drinking culture of the 70s better than anything. Thick, sweet, syrupy drinks that get the job done and paint over the flavor of the alcohol with a sugar bomb. Raise a tequila sunrise to this alcoholic trend that went a little over the line. Number 5. Bartles and Jaymes. Baby boomers remember Bartles and Jaymes, the big wine cooler craze of the 1980s that didn't take itself seriously and resulted in some truly memorable commercials. The old-timey guys found themselves at odds with the young people downing their beverages at a prodigious pace, but they seemed to love what they did. It's no wonder the name went viral back in the mid-80s. They were simply memorable advertisements. They always concluded with, "And thank you for your support," which is an odd thing to say at the end of a wine commercial.
After all, it's not a charity. It's trying to get you to drink more alcohol.
Sadly, in 1991, Congress put a huge dent in Bartles and Jaymes' business. In January of that year, they massively raised the excise tax on wine from 17 cents per gallon to $1.07 per gallon. Suddenly, it was a lot more profitable to sell malt liquor than wine coolers, and Smirnoff Ice overtook Bartles and Jaymes as a flavored party drink of choice. Number 4. Boxed wine. Now, even though it's been nearly 30 years since the tax on wine went up dramatically, we've seen a massive resurgence in the popularity of wine among drinkers of all ages. Boxed wine, or wine stored in a plastic bag inside a cardboard box, is one of the biggest staples of raucous parties at colleges, houses, sporting events, and more. Some rowdy drinkers even play slap the bag, where they pull out the plastic bladder and smack it before drinking directly from the spout at the bottom.
Like I said, party animals can get wild.
For the ease of shipment, lower cost materials, and lower quality than most upscale bottled wines, boxed wine is the biggest winner of recent alcoholic trends. Also, wine production in the United States is growing by leaps and bounds, so the variety and more attractive price make it easy for drinkers to get their fill. Cases of beer make way for boxes of wine. Number 3, Fireball. Now we're getting into the real contemporary underground crazes. About 5 or 6 years ago, a little-known brand of cinnamon-flavored Canadian whiskey suddenly became a staple all over the United States, and everyone was talking about Fireball. How did this sudden craze get started? In 2012, a bar called Beer Can Alley in Des Moines, Iowa, started promoting this particular whiskey heavily. Being a country-themed bar, multiple popular country music acts who made stops at Beer Can Alley were inspired by the fervor of enthusiasm for Fireball and made references to it in their songs.
Yep, just a sip of cinnamon whiskey to wet my whistle, I reckon.
Through a combination of social media marketing, leveraging a few popular product placements in new music, and just having a taste that made whiskey a lot more palatable for drinkers with different flavor preferences, Fireball blew up like, well, a fireball. If you went to a house party between 2012 and 2015, there was always a bottle of that Red Devil waiting, ready to convince you to do something foolish and crazy. Number 2, White Claw Hard Seltzer. Now we're in the zone. Hard seltzer is taking off in a big way in 2019. It's basically club soda, or carbonated water, with somewhere around 5% alcohol content and a light, sugar-free flavoring. It's got 2 things going for it. 1, it's the best of seemingly healthy alternatives to carb-heavy beers, wines, and mixed drinks. And 2, it allows drinkers to enjoy a whole mess of beverages without feeling like a lush. Compare that to hard liquor, where only a small amount of actual liquid leads to a big effect on the mind and body. It's also relatively cheap, which helps among younger drinkers as well. And the biggest winner from all this? White Claw, whose profile skyrocketed in 2019 thanks to a viral social media campaign that has all the major websites overrun with memes and photos of the famous refreshment.
As the unofficial slogan goes, ain't no laws when you're drinking claws.
White Claw is the brand currently at the apex of the hard seltzer craze, with competitors scrambling to catch up to its white-hot appeal to consumers. In fact, in mid-2019, White Claw hit national news when a story broke that the supplier was simply unable to keep up with demand, leading to a nationwide shortage of the bubbly beverage. That's right, people are drinking White Claw so fast, the producer can't keep up. This is astonishing on a number of levels. I'm concerned, to be honest. If consumers run the well of spiked sparkling water dry, what's left for them to use to refresh themselves at parties? Are we on the verge of a modern-day White Claw rebellion? It happened in 1792 over taxes on whiskey. It could happen again today over bare grocery store shelves. Or worse, could we see a return to the days of the number 1 item on this list? I hope not, for the sake of everyone's livers. And now for the number 1 drink craze that went absolutely too far. But first, if you're a fan of wild video breakdowns like this one, throw down with a thumbs up and hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and get more awesome content about your favorite topics like this one. And let me know in the comments, would you join the White Claw Rebellion if the world runs out of refreshing, alcoholic sparkling water? Would you lay your life on the line to ensure that future generations get to enjoy hard seltzer? Number 1, for Loko. This one absolutely went too far. Some crazy college kids decided to mix malt liquor with caffeine. Back in 2010, this was the original drink the young people called energy beer, or Quattro Crazy. And yes, things did get crazy when Four Loko hit the scene. Because of the caffeine and taurine in the drink, rather than energy levels dipping after consuming one or two of this beverage, people's energy spiked and led them to foolishly believe that they were not even intoxicated. Then they drank more. Incidents of alcohol poisoning piled up quickly. The FDA sprang into action, and in November 2010, they banned the sale of the drink in its original form. Ironically, this negative attention led to a robust black market of original recipe Four Loko that continued for a number of months after the blend was changed to remove the caffeine. Enterprising college students hoarded the original mix, selling it for upwards of 5 times the retail value of the cans. That's how things go when you ban a product, I guess.
I remember hearing stories of people bragging how they still had a dozen cans of the good Four Loko, and we're planning on saving it for special occasions.
Thankfully, the drink is merely a form of malt liquor now, not a dangerous blend of liquor and stimulants. All in all, I think I prefer the craze for White Claw. No one breaks down doorways or jumps off balconies after drinking 3 hard seltzers, that's for sure.